what's led to the kind of consternation and hand-wringing that the three of us, and by extension, certainly the fan base, has felt is that there are a lot of inexplicable elements to how this could happen. I mean, we have never covered this. We've never seen this. It's left us, as we've said many times, wondering, is there something we don't know? Is something else going on? Because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that you climb to where they did and win, 19 games in a row and 10, 2 years ago, 13 last year, win the conference. It doesn't happen that you nosedive to this degree. And so trying to label how and why has been very difficult for all of us. We all have observations. We all have eyes. We can all certainly watch the games. The numbers speak for themselves. You watch the games, they can't run the ball, and this is a veteran offensive line that was hyped up by the head coach. So you ask yourself, what gives? What happened? How is it that they're not even as good as they were 2 years ago? It's baffling, and it is frustrating, and I think, the tone is certainly anger amongst most fans right now. I think it is fair for people to say that they feel betrayed, that the athletic department, that the head coach, et cetera, has betrayed their fans. I mean, how could you not feel that way in the midst of a 1-5 season where you're this incompetent on the ground? I mean, I'm surprised the tone hadn't shifted prior to today. I get what you're saying, Ira. Yeah, there are veteran players you're going to let try to work through some things.
Especially because they had guys injured. Darius had his injury that cost him a game, and then he comes back the next week and still wasn't 100%. Jeremiah Byers missed 3 games. Yeah. So you had some other circumstances. It's not like those 5 guys played all 4 or 5 games and they didn't make changes. But now they have been back for a couple games, and it's still been awful.
Yeah, it's still been awful, and there are a lot of other aspects to the awful that we see. It's sprinkled out amongst many segment groups. So I'm glad change is on the horizon. Mike has that faraway look on his face a lot these days, and I think it's partly because much of what maybe you want to do and that you think you could do or perhaps are planning to do, you can't do for many weeks to come, and you still have to play these games. And you kind of go in every Saturday feeling a bit like a dead man walking. It'll be very interesting to see. I mean, if you run like that the remainder of the year, which is to say you don't have any running game to speak of, well,
wait.
You may win.
You have 58 yards per game.
You may
don't forget those 58 yards. That
You're not going to be playing Clemson every week.
Yeah. That's right.
You may be winning one more game. I don't feel good about projecting wins. I'm not saying they can't win these other games, but I wouldn't project wins right now for Florida State. I am excited what Brock brought to the table. Sorry.
That's hard to
Brock
say.
brought to the table.
Yeah, that's kind of tough to do. I am excited about that.
Yeah, man, I think that
I thought he played very well.
What he does change is, and I mean, it's fair to say what you said about you're not going to beat any of these teams if you don't have a running game. But if you have a quarterback that plays like that, and we'll see, one other interesting thing Norvell said was he said, yeah, man, on some of those intermediate throws, he threw with more conviction and ripped it in a way he really hasn't even in practice, which I would agree with. I mean, I thought he looked better in that game than he has in practice. So if that's who he's going to be, now that does give you a chance in these other games, though. Like he gives you a chance to beat Duke. He gives you a chance to beat Carolina. He gives you a chance to beat Florida. I didn't
imagine those words coming out of your mouth.
Well, man,
he gives you a chance.
A week ago,
Duke.
I didn't think they had.
No,
a
I
chance
know. I'm
to
saying
beat
just when
teams.
this season started, to think we'd be sitting here in October saying, well, he gives you at least a chance to beat Duke. Yikes! But that's where we are. That's where we are. And yeah, it's not going to get any better, the running game at all, if you don't run the quarterback or do some wildcat or something. And that's a larger discussion about can it be fixed? What in the world is going on with the scheme, personnel, the way you're teaching offensive line, the way you're coaching this running attack? Because again, as I wrote and as we've talked about, it is historically bad. It is not. Some teams struggle to run the ball. This was the point I made in the column. NC State struggles to run the ball. They're 105th in the country in rushing attack. They average 70 more yards a game than Florida State.
Sure.
There's suck. There's 20 feet of dirt and magma, and then there's Florida State underneath that. It is an all-time awful rushing attack, so much so that I think after one bad year, make a lot of changes. And I'm not talking about you just got to change your coach. Like maybe it's the offensive line coach's problem. I can certainly get behind that. Change the offense. Do some. This can't happen again. Well, this can't happen again.
I think the valid point, too, that we did observe this. I know it got lost in the shuffle because why would we dwell on it when you're winning a bunch of games? But I know I brought it up. I think we all did at various points. I know we did on this show. They didn't run the ball well last year on a per-run basis. You saw lots of problems in the run game last year.
And then Benson would hit a 50-yard.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. And Benson was the first back taken in the NFL draft. Like that's talent, right? He physically, he's a difference maker. at a high level, right? So you would get a carry for minus a yard, a carry for 2 yards, a carry for no yards. Somewhere in there, he breaks 3 tackles and goes 70 because he's a freak. And it skewed it. But on a per-run basis, the success rate was awful. And I would bring that up each week and kind of like, that's disconcerting. And that's one of the reasons we were talking about, man, Jordan's going to have to start running and change the math a little bit. That's why we were wringing our hands like he's not running right now and they can't run the ball.
Well, also, that's why we thought he gave him a chance in the playoff, is because he would run in a semifinal of a national championship.
So the point is we were headed towards a problem within the offense. There's no way we could have predicted this.
Well, and the premise was that they brought in 2 guards last year, or they had Dimitri Emanuel, who was, I think, banged up, and they brought in the kid from Colorado. And they, maybe if you go get better guards, that's going to solve a lot of problems. And then Richie Leonard had started every year at Florida. That was not a good offensive line, but he seemed to be the best of that group. There was promise about him. Now, of course, he's injured. You also brought in the kid from Alabama, the kid from Harvard. So you're thinking like if they upgrade a guard with so much experience at the tackles and center, this should be a good offensive line. And it's obviously
it's not a good.
But I thought, I did and again, man, it's talk, and I get that it's 5-6 games in, it's too late. But at least, man, finally they're talking about changing personnel, changing people, because that's you can't just keep trotting the same guys out there and not block anybody. So I mean, it could be partly scheme, man, but I'm usually more about players than plays. I think you've got better linemen.
Correct.
Better skill guys, better linemen.
I would like maybe a coach have the ability to adapt to his personnel.
For sure.
We can't run this offense, so let's quit trying to run this offense. It is clearly not working. We're 6 games in now.
The reason that everybody's also still in shock is because in prior stints, whether he was the OC at Arizona State or he was the head coach at Memphis, that's exactly what he did. He didn't always have a mobile quarterback. He was able to run.
Yeah, right.
So he
didn't have Alex Atkins as his O-line coach.
He's never shown that he would be this stubborn to stay within the realm of this over and over again, despite no evidence that it would succeed. And that has left people kind of, again, we said it last week, grasping for straws. What is going on? Like, why? When did you get so stubborn? When did this happen that you wouldn't try new things? Because you were always so creative and always willing, especially when you knew you were outmanned. It wouldn't take much to realize pretty early in this season when your offensive line is getting pushed around by the likes of SMU and Memphis that, man, maybe.
I think that they thought, again, this is all, we can criticize them now. I think at the time they thought, it's like why they didn't replace DJ. I think they thought DJ would get better. I think, and once he got better, I think they thought he gave them a much better chance as the season went on. They were waiting for that light to click on. I think the Cal game maybe gave them some hope, and then the SMU went backwards. So same thing with the offensive line. Once you have some guys out and you've seen some guys play at a higher level, then you're thinking, well, once we get these guys back together, we're going to be fine. And it just never happened. So I'm just trying to explain. I think their perception was, it wasn't like they were head in the sand. This is just, there's nothing wrong here. I think they thought once they got guys back and DJ had more time, that it would come around, and clearly they were wrong.
And the concerning thing is the evaluation miss on that they thought it would come around, and the fact that they don't seem to. They got a week now to get it right. We'll see what it looks like next Friday night. They don't seem to have the answers to fix it.
Yeah, we'll see.
At least in season, right? They don't seem to. But they did just play Clemson. So, and I did think, weirdly, again, it looked better than it had all year. You still only scored 13. I get it, gang. But it did have a flow, and it looked better than it had all year.
Yeah, I mean,
that's because of the quarterback.
And I say, if you take away the drops, we can't take away the drops. They still had a lot of drop passes today at practice, which again,
well, at least they're bringing that. They're bringing the practice to the game.
I thought Norvell was pretty pointed about that as well. I mean, again, we're evaluating the long. To me, we're looking at the big picture, okay? And I just feel like there was kind of a few weeks where it was kind of trying to encourage guys, and then it was maybe trying to tweak some things, and now. I thought the comments from the head coach, the offensive coordinator, whether it's because they read stuff we've written or whether it's because
it is, or they watched the Warchant
pressure that they were getting from other people, administration, people that donate money, whatever it is, the comments were a lot more pointed today. And I think we started seeing it last week. They talked about jobs being open, but Norvell reiterated that again today. So that, I think that's healthy for the team, and there expands the chances that we'll see something different in the second half.
Well, the reason you feel encouraged, Corey, you bring up the 13 points, but that's a little bit about results as opposed to process, right? There was plenty of times where the process was right. He put the ball on the money. They just dropped the damn ball. If you catch those passes, and that's not.
I would point one drop. The worst drop was Portier's drop, which was coming back anyway because of a hold. And Williamson drops a ball that should have been a 60-yard gain. They scored a touchdown on that drive anyway. So it's not as if the drops were crippling other than the Danzy drop.
The Danzy drop was brutal. You had the one drop in the middle that would have been a first down.
That was Douglas. It was thrown in his shins. You got to make that play. But the point I wanted to make was I thought, honestly, it was probably the best game the receivers had. They made contested catches. Malik Benson makes an unbelievable catch on the sideline. Right. Comes back because your guard got run the F over.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of catches on 4th down, 3rd down, not many on 3rd, but tough contested catches in the middle of the field that they weren't doing. Like I thought they kind of raised their game. Not hard to raise that standard from what they had been doing.
But it would be nice to not have 5 drops.
And that's just according to PFF. I'm a hard grader. I'm going a little more than 5. But yeah, I get your point. They drop too many balls, period, on dropbacks. If you just go percentage of drops per dropback, they drop too many damn balls. They did 100%. They did when DJ was quarterback too,
correct.
by the way.
Yes.
They dropped too many balls.
DJ was really hurt.
That was also part of the reason why I think that they were trying to work it through with DJ because it wasn't all him.
Sure.
Like the offensive line was not good, which we've seen. The running game wasn't good, and the receivers were dropping passes. And you've got this kid who you feel like has played well in the past. I can understand wanting to give him some time. I would have gotten Brock into some of those games, no question about it.
Halftime of Memphis.
But I also can see at least what they were thinking.